Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to get the essential, maybe surprising, definitely important nuggets from some pretty complex source material.
That's right. We sift through it so you don't have to.
And today, we are taking a really comprehensive look at someone many of you probably grew up with, Judy Blume. Her life, her amazing career, and, well, her complicated legacy.
Complicated is definitely the word.
I mean, if you've ever read one of her books, and let's be honest, who hasn't? You know the name. The numbers are just staggering. She sold over 82 million copies globally.
82 million worldwide.
And it's not just sales, her influence. Time magazine just last year in 2023 named her one of the 100 most influential people in the world. That's generational reach, global.
Absolutely. And this is the core paradox our source material brings up right away. Judy Blume is also, simultaneously, one of the most frequently challenged authors.
Yeah, challenged, censored, outright banned, particularly in U.S. schools and public libraries. It's wild.
It really is.
Yeah.
So you have this massive global influence on one hand and this intense, often very local pushback on the other.
So our mission today, our deep dive, is to unpack that.
Right.
We're digging into her dedicated biographical sources to figure out how she became this literary force, someone who basically defined adolescence for so many people, starting way back in 1969 right through to 2020.
And specifically why the kinds of realistic topics she tackled, the stuff nobody else was touching, led directly to these decades, literally decades of censorship battles.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Right.
How does someone rack up that kind of acclaim, sell tens of millions of books, become a Time 100 influencer,
Right.
and still be a constant target for censorship? That tension, that paradox, that's really the heart of what we're digging into today.
And I think the answer lies squarely in the power and maybe the perceived danger of her subject matter. Her main area, it's often called realist young adult novels.
YA, basically.
Right, YA. But it's so important to see her versatility, too. She wrote and continued to write these incredibly beloved children's books. Think of the Fudge series.
Oh, yeah. Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. Classic.
Exactly. Hugely popular. And she also wrote for adults later on, and successfully, too. Multiple New York Times bestsellers.
Okay.
But her real, indelible mark, that was definitely made in children's and young adult literature. She transformed the whole landscape, changed the conversation about what was okay or even possible to talk about with young readers.
So to really get a handle on this revolution she started, we need to go back to the beginning,
Sure.
Her foundations.
Makes sense.
So she was born Judith Sussman, Elizabeth, New Jersey, 1938, grew up in a Jewish family. Education-wise, it was kind of typical for her time and place. Brief stint at Boston University, then finished up at NYU, New York University, graduated 61, bachelor's degree in education.
And the timing here, the early 60s context, it's really crucial. She married her first husband, John M. Blume. He was a lawyer back in 1959. Then her daughter, Randy Lee, was born in 61. And following that, Judy basically stepped into the expected role of a suburban homemaker.
Right. So Lawrence came along a couple of years later.
Yep, exactly. So by the mid-60s, picture it. She's in that domestic sphere, raising 2 young kids.
And this is where it gets interesting for her writing career, right? The aha moment.
Totally. She apparently always had this habit, kind of an internal thing, of making up stories in her head.
Like just daydreaming?
Sort of, yeah. But she hadn't really pursued writing, as a thing. It was specifically during those hours when her kids were off at preschool or nursery school.
Quiet time.
Exactly. She felt this maybe creative vacuum and a need to do something for herself. So she started writing stories down.
Yeah.
And she actually said it was partly just to entertain herself to fill that time.
Wow. So it wasn't some grand plan initially.
Doesn't sound like it. More like a personal need. But she did build on those education courses she took at NYU. It was a conscious effort, turning what could have been, isolating time, the 60s suburban housewife stereotype, into this period of, intense creativity.
That's amazing, turning that circumstance into fuel.
Yeah, and that drive, that need to express things, it was also shaped by some pretty heavy stuff in her childhood. Our sources mention several hardships that clearly left a mark, often in ways that didn't really come out until much, much later.
Like what?
Well, for instance, when she was in 3rd grade, her older brother David got really sick, a kidney infection. He needed a 2-year recovery period.
2 years? Wow.
Yeah, and it meant this complicated family situation. Judy, her brother, and her mom had to temporarily move down to Miami Beach for his recovery.
While her dad stayed back home.
Right, stayed in Jersey to keep his dental practice running. So you've got separation, illness, being displaced. that kind of experience, it definitely teaches you something about childhood anxiety, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you said some things didn't surface until later.
Yeah, the really stunning example, the one that draws this incredibly direct line between this, like, buried childhood trauma and her later adult fiction is the Elizabeth plane crashes.
Oh, I read about this. This was in her hometown.
Yes, Elizabeth, New Jersey. Between 1951 and 52, 3 separate planes crashed there in rapid succession.
3? That's terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. Major disasters. 121 people died in total. The whole community was just gripped by fear.
And she lived through that as a kid.
As a young teenager, yeah. And what's just fascinating, almost unbelievable, is how these memories, which she said she literally buried, became the absolute core plot for her 2015 adult novel, In the Unlikely Event, decades later.
And her father was involved somehow.
Her father, Rudolf Sussman, he was a dentist, and he was one of the people called upon to help identify the victims' remains, some of which were, well, unrecognizable.
Oh, my God. Imagine carrying that. It's a kid. Knowing your dad is doing that work.
Right.
Seeing your pound go through that.
Exactly. The weight of that experience.
It just adds this whole other layer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The author, famous for dealing with, like, the immediate anxieties of growing up periods, first crushes, all that, was also holding on to this massive, unprocessed community trauma for decades.
Yeah.
It really speaks to how long it can take for art to process life.
It really does. It took her, nearly 60 years to write about that specific New Jersey trauma, but the writing career itself, that got going much faster, relatively speaking.
Right, after the kids were in school.
Yeah. Though it wasn't instant success, she apparently went through about 2 years of constant rejections from publishers.
2 years.
Yeah.
That takes persistence.
It does. But then finally, her first book got published in 1969, a children's story. The one in the middle is The Green Kangaroo.
The Green Kangaroo.
Then book number 2, Iggy's House, came out the next year, 1970. That one was actually a rewrite of a story she'd published earlier in a magazine called Trailblazer.
So she was already reworking things, finding her voice.
Seems like it. But the real, the seismic shift, the breakthrough moment happened later that same year, 1970, her third book.
Let me guess. Margaret?
Bingo. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. That was it.
The one everyone knows.
Instant classic. It wasn't just a popular book. It immediately established her, put her right at the forefront of this emerging thing called young adult literature. It felt necessary. Like it was speaking directly to kids who were tired of the old kind of preachy books.
Okay, so Margaret's success, that basically kicks off what we can pretty accurately call the Judy Blume YA revolution, right?
Absolutely. Revolution is the right word. She didn't just write good YA novels. She fundamentally reshaped the entire genre.
How so?
Well, she was one of the very first major authors, especially for that age group, to build entire novels around topics that were, well, controversial, realistic things that kids and teens were definitely thinking about, worrying about.
That were totally off limits in books.
Exactly. Strictly taboo in the literary world for young people at that time.
We need to remember what YA was like before her. In the early 70s.
Yeah, the context is key. A lot of books for kids back then were really didactic. They were meant to teach a lesson, instill virtue, provide this neat moral roadmap that often just ignored how messy real life actually is.
And Bloom just threw that out.
Pretty much rejected it completely. Her openness was just unprecedented. Think about the subjects she tackled head on: masturbation, menstruation, actual teen sex, birth control, serious family fights, brutal bullying, body image stuff, even death.
Wow, that's a list.
And she always said she wrote about these things for 2 main reasons. 1, she believed kids needed honest information about them. And 2, because these were the exact things she wondered about constantly when she was a kid growing up in Jersey, and there were just no books talking about it.
So it was filling a void she felt herself.
Totally. It was a shift from, like, here's your lesson fiction to, I see you, this is real fiction. Pure connection.
And how did she make that connection so strong? Was it just the topics?
The topics were huge, obviously, but her technique was just as revolutionary. Her mastery of the first-person narrative.
Ah, writing from the kid's point of view.
Exactly. It wasn't just what she said, it was how. By putting the reader right inside the head, the internal monologue of characters like Margaret or Deenie later on, she basically got rid of that judging adult voice that usually policed YA stories.
So the worries felt real.
Universal.
Universal, yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe most importantly, normal. Not something to be ashamed of.
Okay, let's tick off some of the key books and what they did. Are You There, God? It's me, Margaret. 1970, obviously the big one, focused on puberty anxiety.
Yeah, waiting for your period, worrying about breast development, questioning religion and identity, all of it. Still the gold standard for that experience.
And she just kept pushing the envelope.
Oh, yeah. She released this wave of books tackling specific things nobody talked about. Deenie in 1973. That was huge because it talked about masturbation.
Right. How does she handle that? Clinically, but not judgmentally. It wasn't presented as like a sin or dangerous, just a part of life, part of self-discovery. That might seem small now, but back then, it was like breaking down a massive cultural wall.
And she didn't shy away from the tough social stuff either, right? Like bullying.
Not at all. Blubber, 1974, that was a really raw, unflinching look at how cruel kids can be. Peer pressure, exclusion, humiliation.
Did that get pushed back too?
Oh, yeah. Blubber got its own special kind of criticism. Some people, especially more conservative readers, argued it sent the wrong message. Because the bullies, particularly the main one, Linda, don't really face serious consequences in the story. There's no neat, tidy punishment from adults. Critics felt that showed kids they could get away with being awful.
Interesting. So they wanted a moral hammer to come down.
Exactly. They wanted that didactic ending, and Blume just wasn't giving it to them. She showed the messiness.
What about family issues? Like divorce?
It's Not the End of the World, 1972. That book was praised, widely praised, as almost like literary therapy for kids going through their parents' divorce.
Which was becoming more common then.
Increasingly common, yeah, but still pretty absent from children's literature. Blume provided this really genuine, sympathetic guide through that confusion and pain.
Okay, but the one book that really cemented her place on banned book lists forever. The one that was maybe the most revolutionary.
Has to be Forever.
Forever. Published in 1975.
Yeah. Forever wasn't just groundbreaking for YA. A lot of critics consider it the first major young adult novel to portray a consensual teenage sexual relationship between Catherine and Michael as, well, normal.
Normal. How so?
Normal in the sense that it was positive, healthy, and crucially, it didn't end in some kind of obligatory tragedy. You know, the usual tropes, unwanted pregnancy, STDs, maybe even death, that often showed up if a book even dared touch teen sex before them.
Right, the punishment for having sex.
Exactly. Blume rejected that narrative.
And there's a story behind why she wrote it, isn't there? About her daughter.
Yeah, it's such a telling anecdote. Apparently her daughter, Randy, who was 13 at the time, told her she wanted to read a book where the characters have sex, but, and this is the quote, don't die afterward.
Wow. Just don't die. That's a low bar. But it says everything about what was available.
Doesn't it? That simple desire for normalcy, for survival in a narrative, was actually radical. And Blume delivered. She made the characters feel real, gave them believable personalities.
Catherine and Michael.
Right. And she included frank, detailed descriptions of them using birth control. She emphasized consent. And she depicted a relationship that, well, it just ran its natural course. It ended, but not because of some external moral judgment or divine intervention.
Right, here's where I think it gets really interesting. This idea that her books became this kind of roadmap for readers, especially for young girls, right?
Definitely.
Who maybe felt totally alone dealing with their bodies changing their feelings.
Yeah.
She offered this powerful counter-narrative to a culture that, let's face it, often wrapped female sexuality and puberty in so much shame and silence.
Absolutely. By just normalizing these experiences, periods, bras, crushes, sex, she wasn't just giving information, she was giving validation. It was like her books were saying, hey, it's okay, you're okay.
And more than okay, maybe. I read somewhere that her books made being a woman pretty cool, actually. Like suggesting there should be excitement and curiosity about growing up, not just fear.
Yes. That sense of excitement, of resilience, that's key. Critics who understood her work saw that she gave her characters the freedom to be complicated, to make mistakes, without needing to be saved or condemned.
She trusted the readers.
She trusted her readers, yeah. Trusted they were resilient enough to handle disappointment, navigate regret, without needing some heavy-handed moral lesson from the author at the end. And that message of agency, of survival, of trusting the reader's intelligence, that's precisely why her work hit so hard.
And also why it became so threatening to people who thought books should impose strict moral boundaries.
Exactly. It challenged that control.
Now, before we move on from YA, we absolutely have to give a shout out to her children's books too. Because while we're focusing on the YA revolution,
right,
the Fudge series was huge. Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, Super Fudge, Double Fudge.
Oh, massive. Can't forget Fudge.
Those books nailed universal stuff like sibling rivalry, family life, just Perfectly. It shows she could connect with really young readers, too. Her reach was just incredible across all of childhood, really.
Yeah, totally. Peter and Fudge are iconic.
Okay, so by the late 70s, Bloom is basically the queen of YA, undisputed. But she didn't just stay there, did she?
Nope, she kept evolving. In 1978, she made a pretty significant pivot, published her first novel explicitly for adults, Wifey.
Wifey. And what was that about? Was it similar territory?
In a way, yes. It was a very direct, very frank exploration of adult female sexuality, sure, but also marital dissatisfaction. That kind of existential boredom or dread that could come with the suburban homemaker life she herself had known.
Ah, interesting connection back to her own early writing days.
Definitely. And the move paid off instantly, commercially speaking.
Wow.
Wifey sold over 4 million copies.
Wow.
Yeah, huge seller. Hit the New York Times bestseller list hard. And you can see that thematic bridge, right?
Oh.
She didn't really change her core subject, that frank look at female desire, self-discovery, maybe disillusionment.
She just aged up the characters.
Exactly. Wifey was about a woman rebelling against feeling, consumed by domesticity, a pretty natural progression from the girls in her YA books who were figuring out who they were going to be.
Did she follow up with more adult fiction?
She did. In 1983, Smart Women came out, another big success, also topped the Times list, but it was her third adult novel, Summer Sisters, in 1998, that really proved something interesting.
What was that?
That the controversy would follow her no matter who the intended audience was.
Ah, so Summer Sisters got pushed back too, even though it was for adults.
Yep. It was another huge commercial hit, sold over 3 million copies, got a lot of critical praise, actually, for how it depicted this really intense female friendship over decades. But the familiar criticisms popped up again. It faced backlash for its sexual content, which, again, was just a more mature version of themes she'd always explored.
Like in Forever.
Kind of, yeah. And also specifically for including homosexual themes. It just showed that for her critics, any frank portrayal of sexuality, especially if it wasn't strictly traditional or heterosexual, was still seen as the problem. Didn't matter if the readers were adults.
So the core issue remained the same for them.
Pretty much. But commercially, her legacy was just untouchable by then.
Yeah.
You mentioned the 82 million copies globally.
Right.
Translated into 32 languages. She's not just an American phenomenon, she's a global literary figure, period.
Let's touch briefly on her personal life again, because it weaves into this theme of resilience, doesn't it?
It does. We mentioned her first marriage ended in divorce in 1975. She then married Thomas Kitchens, a physicist, in 76.
Okay.
That led to a brief move, just a couple of years, to Los Alamos, New Mexico for his work. But they divorced in 78. Then, in 1987, she married George Cooper. He's a former law professor who became a nonfiction writer himself, and they're still together, living down in Key West, Florida.
Key West, okay. And there was a health challenge later on, too.
Yes. In 2012, August 2012, she shared publicly that she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer. It was found during a routine ultrasound.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She was very open about the experience, the quick diagnosis, the decision for a mastectomy and reconstruction, and her recovery. Thankfully, she became cancer-free. But it was another instance where her real life showed that same kind of resilience you see in her characters, facing something huge and getting through it.
That's really powerful. And the literary life continued within her family, too, right, with her kids?
Yeah, it's actually quite lovely. Her son, Lawrence Bloom, he's now a successful movie director, producer, writer, and they've actually collaborated quite a bit on adapting her work.
Oh, cool.
And her daughter, Randy Bloom, she's a therapist now, but she has this interesting subspecialty. She helps writers work through blocks and actually finish their projects.
Wow, that's amazing. Supporting the creative process directly.
Exactly. And then there's this charming little story about her grandson, Elliot Kefart. Apparently, he was the one who encouraged her to write the most recent Fudge book, Double Fudge.
No way. That's great.
Isn't it? Shows she's still connected to that young reader perspective, even through her own family.
Okay, this brings us right back to that central puzzle, the paradox. How does the same writer, the same books, get showered with prestigious awards and constantly end up on banned book lists? Let's break down that contrast. Start with the praise the reader love.
The praise always comes back to honesty and validation. You hear it over and over from readers, especially women who grew up with her books. They talk about the immense relief they felt.
Relief.
Yeah, relief at finally reading someone being honest about divorce, about how awkward puberty felt, about being scared of death, confused about relationships, all of it. That first-person voice we talked about, it made the books feel incredibly relatable, like she got it.
Non-judgmental too, right?
Totally non-judgmental, Readers felt seen, understood. She got countless letters, especially from young girls, saying Margaret felt like them, or that she was the first author who really understood their inner lives.
So the books were seen as taboo trampling, but in a good way, like helpful.
Exactly. Helpful, informative, made them feel less alone, maybe more prepared for what was coming. It was like this shared secret, this validation that your worries were normal.
Okay, so that's the love. Now, the backlash, the institutional opposition.
Yeah.
When did that really gear up?
Well, there were murmurs early on, but it really started in earnest in the late 1970s and then just exploded in the 1980s. Coinciding with a more organized and vocal conservative movement in the U.S. A lot of the challenges came from conservative parent groups, religious organizations, people wanting more control over what was available in schools and libraries. Since about 1980, her novels have just been ground zero for YA controversy.
So what was the core argument against her? What was the main criticism?
The main line of attack was usually that she put too much emphasis on the physical stuff, the sexual side of growing up.
Okay.
And that in doing so, she was neglecting, or some even argued, actively undermining the development of morals, of emotional maturity.
So basically, it was a fight over the purpose of literature. Should it reflect messy reality, or should it impose a specific moral ideal?
That's pretty much it. There was this fear that just by describing something like teen sex or questioning religion, she was automatically endorsing it, promoting it even.
And this ties into something you mentioned earlier, the pushback against, what was it, the infantilization of women.
Yeah, I think that's a really crucial lens here. Blume treated the inner lives, the questions, the experiences of teenage girls as inherently important, significant, not silly or trivial.
She respected their intelligence and curiosity.
Exactly. And their resilience. The censors often seem to operate from this belief that kids, especially girls, needed to be shielded from reality, protected from knowledge almost, until some vaguely defined appropriate age or until a parent or church approved.
And Blume's work just blew past that boundary.
Completely. Her books basically said, hey, girls are curious, they're capable, they're even excited about growing up, even with the bumps. They don't need you to filter reality for them. And that assertion, that was deeply threatening to the control narrative.
The specific examples of censorship are pretty wild, aren't they? Even with Margaret.
Oh, right from the start. Blume herself tells the story. The principal of her own kids' elementary school refused to put, "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret, in the library." Why?
Because it mentioned menstruation.
Because it mentioned menstruation, a basic biological fact. And that specific fight, it's still going on today. Conservative and religious groups still try to ban it because the way it portrays puberty clashes with their views.
Decades later. Wow.
And then, of course, forever. That book is just the permanent lightning rod.
Because of the sex and birth control.
Because it depicted teen sex and birth control without condemning the characters. It was just relentlessly targeted. Its status was so notorious that the American Library Association ranked it seventh on their list of the top 100 most banned books for the entire decade of the 1990s.
The entire 90s. That's incredible.
It shows the battle wasn't just about protecting kids. It was about who gets to control information about sex and bodies.
Yeah.
Should it be the library, the school, or only the parent, only the church?
And even Blubber, the bullying book, got flagged.
Yeah, interestingly, Blubber got criticized for that realistic, somewhat ambiguous ending we talked about, where the bully doesn't get a clear punishment.
Right.
Critics felt that sent a bad message, like, see, you can be cruel and get away with it. They missed the point that, well, sometimes that is how things work in childhood, and exploring that ambiguity is valuable.
But through all this, Blume herself didn't back down.
Not even slightly. That's the remarkable part. When the controversies really heated up in the 80s, when the political pressure was mounting, she made a choice. She became an activist.
How?
She started actively reaching out, connecting with other writers, with teachers, with librarians, building a coalition, basically, to fight back against censorship. It was like her career gained this whole second track focused on intellectual freedom.
So she became a public advocate.
A very public, very tireless advocate for the freedom to read. That led her to join the National Coalition Against Censorship, the NCAC. She's still on their board today.
Wow. Still fighting that fight.
Absolutely. And her activism isn't just about her own books anymore. It's about the principle. Protecting free expression for all authors and ensuring all young readers have access to diverse ideas. She also co-founded the Kids Fund, which is a foundation focused on supporting kids' needs.
Yeah, didn't she take this commitment even further, like into her business life?
She did. It's really quite something. In 2018, she and her husband, George Cooper, opened a bookstore in Key West. But not just any bookstore, a nonprofit bookstore called Books and Books.
A nonprofit bookstore.
Yeah. It's like this statement, reinforcing the idea that the physical space of a bookstore is vital. It's a protected zone for curiosity, for intellectual freedom. She literally took the fight from the often hostile school board meetings right onto the main street.
Okay, so you have the decades of banning attempts on one side, but on the other, an absolutely incredible collection of honors and awards. That serves as the ultimate rebuttal, doesn't it?
It really does. The sheer number is amazing. Over 90 literary awards, including 3 separate Lifetime Achievement Awards just in the U.S. The literary establishment has basically said loud and clear, yes, her contribution is invaluable.
What are some of the big ones, the really high-profile honors?
Well, in 1996, she got the Margaret A. Edwards Award from the ALA, the American Library Association. That's specifically for significant and lasting contributions to young adult literature.
Okay.
And what's really telling is that the ALA specifically mentioned Forever when they gave her that award.
The most banned book.
Exactly. The very book that caused so much controversy was explicitly recognized for its value by the Library Association itself. That's a statement.
Definitely. What else?
In 2000, the Library of Congress named her a living legend in their writers and artists category. Kind of bumps her up from just being popular to being part of America's cultural heritage.
Living legend. Nice title.
Isn't it? And then, maybe the biggest one, in 2004, she received the National Book Foundation Medal for Distinguished Contribution to American Letters.
Okay, that's huge. That's like the literary world's highest honor, pretty much.
It's right up there. It basically signals that her work, her creation of this realistic YA genre, is now seen as an essential, positive chapter in American literary history. Full stop.
And she got awards for the activism, too, right?
Oh, yeah. Numerous awards recognizing her fight for free speech, like the Carl Sandburg Freedom to Read Award way back in '84, an honor from the NCAC in 2009, acknowledging that her work as an advocate is just as important as her writing.
It's just striking, isn't it? The nation honors her at the highest levels, while local groups are still trying to ban her.
The paradox continues.
Let's shift to her cultural footprint, beyond just the books and awards, media adaptations. Those really show enduring relevance, right?
For sure. And the first one came pretty early. A TV movie based on Forever aired on CBS back in 1978.
78? Wow, that was quick.
Yeah, starring Stephanie Zimbalist. Shows how quickly the material resonated and seemed adaptable for the screen.
And she worked with her son on some adaptations.
She did. They collaborated early on a TV version of otherwise known as Sheila the Great in 1988 for ABC. That partnership kind of set the stage for bigger things later.
Were the kids' books adapted too? Like Fudge?
Oh yeah, the Fudge TV series. Based on Fudge-mania, it ran for 2 seasons, 95 to 97. Started on ABC, then moved to CBS. Just proved again how timeless Peter and Fudge's dynamic was. Hilarious.
But when did she make the jump to, like, feature films in theaters?
That came in 2012 with Tiger Eyes.
Yeah.
Based on her 1981 novel.
The one about the girl dealing with her father's death.
That's the one. It was significant because it was her first book turned into a full theatrical movie, and she co-wrote the screenplay with her son, Lawrence, who also directed it.
So keeping it in the family, ensuring it stayed true to the book.
Seems like that was the goal, yeah.
And then just recently, 2023, that felt like a real Judy Blume moment, didn't it?
Absolutely. A huge year for her visibility. You had the premiere of the documentary, Judy Blume Forever, which won a Peabody Award, by the way.
Wow, Peabody.
Yeah. And at the same time, the feature film adaptation of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, finally came out.
Finally. People waited decades for that one.
He really did. And the film got great reviews, especially for capturing the book's tone and honesty so well. It just proved that story hadn't lost any of its relevance in over 50 years.
And there's more coming.
Looks like it.
Mm-hmm.
Her most controversial book, Forever, is apparently being adapted into a series for Netflix, scheduled for 2025.
Wow. Still pushing boundaries, even in adaptation.
Seems so. And her influence pops up in other places too, right? Like music.
Yeah, that Amanda Palmer song from 2018, just called Judy Blume.
Right. That song is like this perfect cultural artifact. The lyrics spell out exactly how Blume's books were this crucial guide for Palmer growing up, helping her understand periods, sex, all the intimate stuff.
But also the big universal things.
Exactly, like grief, poverty, parents divorcing. Palmer's song basically says Blume gave her the language, the framework to understand life. She's just baked into the cultural psyche for so many people. Hashtag tag, tag outro.
So wrapping up this deep dive, I mean, the big takeaway has to be that duality, right? This constant tension in Judy Blume's career.
Absolutely. On one side, you have the National Book Foundation honoring her for a distinguished contribution to American letters. Highest praise possible.
And on the other side, she's still a lightning rod. Still a target for censorship year after year.
It's because she pioneered that frank, honest, non-judgmental talk about what adolescence is really like. Sexuality, puberty, death, divorce, all the messy stuff that society, especially back then, really wanted to keep hidden from kids. She just refused to hide it.
So what does it all mean, looking at it now? What's the lasting impact?
I think her body of work stands as this powerful, ongoing argument against that tendency to infantilize young people, especially young women.
Treating them like they can't handle the truth.
Exactly. Her novels insisted that teenage feelings, teenage problems, teenage questions are important, that teens are resilient. She proved readers could handle honesty, and the fact that kids kept demanding her books, kept reading them secretly if they had to, despite all the efforts to ban them, that just confirms she met this deep, fundamental need. A need for literary honesty that just wasn't being met anywhere else at the time.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you, our listeners, to chew on. Something provocative. Judy Blume built this incredible, decades-long career focusing on the immediate stuff of growing up, right? Puberty, first love, social anxieties, the right now feelings.
The very present tense of adolescence.
Right. But then her 2015 novel, In the Unlikely Event, the one based on the plane crashes, it reveals that this author, known for tackling the immediate, actually held on to her own deepest, most traumatic childhood experience, those plane crashes from the 50s, for almost 60 years, and saved that story for her mature, later work.
That's a really interesting point.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, how often the really profound traumas, the deep wounds, have to wait. Wait until an artist feels secure, maybe feels like their voice is established, before they can finally unearth them and shape them into art. Something to think about.